You're listening to Oh My Health, There Is Hope podcast.
When your heart is aching and your world is shaking, don't give up. No, don't give up.
Hello and welcome to Oh My Health, There Is Hope. I'm your host, Jana Short, and today I'm here with Indy Rishi Singh. Rishi is a quintessential literal thinker. His curiosity and experience make him an ideal innovator for today's times. Rishi is deeply involved with several inter-evolutionary projects, which have led him to a collective universal economic and emotional success. And I am really so excited to have you here today because I just finished watching your Channel 7 news clip. I love how you're giving back to the community. But the first thing we're going to ask you to do is to share your story of hope.
Well, thank you for bringing that up because it was so fun working with the police officers in San Francisco and for trying to tackle the problem with police, everything, right? Police and citizenship, but through love, through compassion rather than through vitriol. But yeah, so my hope, wow. I think I can't start my story of hope without acknowledging where I came from and what got me here. I come from two immigrant Indian parents who immigrated with nothing. So I was from a lower working class family in America, the American dream, right? And two immigrants, didn't speak much English, I growing up coming from a lower class perspective, working class, being in that, watching my dad every day as a carpenter work hard, my mom really work hard, my brother eventually, my older brother, I kind of got that same work ethic ethos, but at the same time, I started, even though I wanted to do more creative things as a kid, and my mind was very hyperactive. I was reading books. My first job was as a librarian in my city, but despite all of that, I naturally had to move towards being an immigrant kid, move towards becoming a doctor, or it was an engineer, right? Or whatever. I mean, I had to fit into the box, right? And that kind of led me down a really dark path because I started to do what I was supposed to do. According to, being an immigrant, lower middle class lower working class family, I had to create the future for my generations to come. It makes sense. A very conservative minded thinking, right? At the same time, I was having this dissonance within myself because I naturally wanted to create, I wanted to solve problems. I wanted to be a part of creating new ways, efficiencies, in health. I wanted to do that in health. I wanted to do it in my community. I wanted to do that in different spaces. But what happened was in medical school, that's when I fell into deep despair. I got a chronic illness while I was in medical school. It was actually a GI chronic illness, and it was it wouldn't go away. And I went to see several specialists. I was in medical school, mind you, right? At this time, I'm in medical school, and I'm having terrible GI issues, and I'm in medical school, and so I'm seeing specialists, and they're telling me different things, right? Crohn's disease, or you have ulcerative colitis, or you're gonna have this your whole life. You have IBS, right? I was getting all these different things, and it was but people were giving medications, but there was no solution. And I was what's going on? There can't be no solution, right? So all these people are suffering from this. We haven't figured it out. What's going on? And eventually my frustration led to a substance abuse. And I started popping Oxycontin and Vicodin while I was studying in school. And mind you, I'm not the only one. I'll tell you from my experience, a lot of physicians do a lot of stuff. They might do it legally prescribed things, but they're not clear of mind, right? We'd be surprised at how many physicians are unwell, mentally unwell. I mean, suicides, the profession committing the most suicides are doctors. Come on, especially right now, it's getting worse, right? So we need to acknowledge that, doctors have to be mentally healthy too, right? And that helps their patients across the board and the medical system. But anyways, so I kind of started going down this path of I was getting frustrated that the space I spent so much my energy, so much of my money, my loans I took out, my family helped to pay things, being a lower class family, all the money went into me being a doctor, and I was not getting healthy myself. I was getting more and more sick within the establishment, right? Within the system itself. And I was learning that system. So it was so I started having this disconnection of wait, am I here? Am I actually going to be helping people? Is this really, that's what was happening, but I wasn't understanding that. It was I wasn't intellectually or spiritually or whatever you want to call it. I wasn't there. I wasn't making the connection. I was getting more and more frustrated. So I started popping more and more Vicodin, and like all day long popping back while I'm working, while I'm studying. Like it was just became normal. Eventually something happened. It clicked. Maybe it must have been some form of depression mixed with the drugs, whatever. I just stopped going and I quit. I like stopped doing everything. I stopped pursuing medicine, and like eventually they kicked me out. I got a letter. They're like, "You're out," and I was like, I didn't care. My family was distraught. They were like, "Oh my God," they're Indian parents. They're like, "What are you doing? Like, you did all this. We did for this for you. We can do a medical for you." So like, I was like, "Oh my God, total black sheep." And I just went down a deep, dark abyss. You know, like the deep night of the soul. Right. I like literally went there for about 2.5 months. I was trying to kill myself, drinking alcohol, popping pills, smoking weed, like really just destroying. I knew what it was doing to my liver. You know, I studied it, right? I studied the pathology. I was literally killing myself. I was done. I mean, what am I going to do now? And what brought me out of it was my mom. She comes home from work one day and she goes, "Let's go." And I'm a very rebellious, like, I need to know why we're doing. I'm not gonna just go. She's like, "There's a guy visiting from India who, you know, he's like a guru from India. He's like from a village in India. He's not like, doesn't have a website. He's not like a Osho or something like that guru, right? He's just like a guru from a village who like helps families and people out. He does his own practice and he helps people out." And so she's like, "We're gonna go meet him." I'm like, "Oh yeah." I'm a skeptic. Yana, you would never guess, but I'm a hardcore skeptic about everything. Everything. I like skeptic even about myself. Actually, I'm the most skeptic about myself before anybody else. And like, so I go with her. I like travel with her. I mean, I decided to go with her, but I'm like, I'm gonna check this guy. Like, I'm gonna ask him questions. I'm gonna break him down. Like, I'm gonna find out if this guy's, is he a charlatan? You know, is he taking advantage of people or is he actually helping people, right? I was like, you know, I'd smoked a little weed in the morning. I'm like, I'm gonna be a little rambunctious, right? And so I get there to this house and I walk into his room. And by the way, usually you go with your families. I tell my mom, "Hey mom, move to the side. I'm gonna go see him by myself. Like, you can go see him yourself. I want to talk to him alone." And she's like, "Oh shit, I hope he doesn't say anything crazy." And then so anyways, I go in there. And when I walk in, Yana, I will never forget this. This is like a game changer for me. I walk in and he doesn't open his eyes one time. Like the whole time his eyes are closed. And I'm like, "What?" Like I end up having an hour and a half long conversation with him. The whole time he eyes closed. He has a thusby in his hand, like a mala, you know, the beads, thusby, and he's like just doing the thusby. Underneath his breath, he's like chanting something, but he's like talking to me too, like in English and in Punjabi. Like he's going back and forth between languages with me. And we have this conversation. And Yana, I break down in the conversation. Mind you, when he's like talking to me, it felt like you know, when somebody's looking at you from behind you and you like look around and they're looking at you. You ever experienced that?
Yes.
It felt like that. Okay. I was like, wait, you know, so it looked like he was looking at me, but he was like, eyes are closed. Anyways, I just start bawling. I start sharing with him like my shame, my embarrassment, my pain, my suffering, my anxieties, I just start pouring out stuff. And he just sits there, doing his thusby, meditating, responding to me, listening to me, responding, like beautifully responding to me, but like never like bringing his ego into it. Like he like never was telling me to do anything. He was just like holding space in a beautiful way. And throughout that experience, he ended up reteaching me a meditation that my grandma actually taught me when I was a little kid. But I didn't use it anymore. Like I didn't like you know, something happened when I got older. I stopped connecting to it as a tool. And he retaught it to me as a tool. And then he taught it to me as a tool of like, hey, try a little bit further. Like, don't listen to me. Try a little bit further. Experiment how far you can go with this meditation. And I was like, interesting. Like nobody's ever like kind of just lovingly nudged me, right? People either told me to do this or, you know, don't do this, right? And so it's kind of cool to have like a scientific perspective of meditation. Like he kind of introduced like, hey, practice mindfulness and meditation as an experiment for your mind, for your body, for your consciousness, for your spirituality, right? Like practice like as an experiment, right? Rather than as like a religion or a dogma. And so I went home and I started doing this, and right away my life changed. Like I cold turkeyed everything. I started using the meditation. I cold turkeyed everything. And then I started trying other meditations because I was like, wait, if this thing works and this thing kept helping me, I like started experimenting with other types of meditation. And since then, it's been, you know, almost 13 years. I've like traveled around the world. I've made incredible relationships. I've started and been involved with companies and nonprofits. And I have to attest that my ability to do more in the world, to be more efficient, to use my time wisely, to say no to certain people and yes to certain people, right? right? Like you're not wasting energy or time. Is a lot of it's attributed to continuing to practice meditation in different ways and then make my own and synthesize my own. So there's a lot of other hopeful things that have happened in my life, but that thing, like finding out, Jana, that like meditation and mindfulness is an experiment, and to introduce it to other people in that way has become a really beautiful part of my life. Like I have no intention of wanting to even make money from that. Like I just think it's wonderful just to ignite in other people that like meditation, mindfulness is a practice and it's an experiment. And like what works for you is different than for me and works for everyone. Like it's so vast and infinite. We should never get stuck in the dogma of it or the cult or whatever, right? There's all these weird perversions that happen when we forget that we actually have to figure out our own. Right. And that's kind of what I've learned. But once again, I preface that with, I don't know anything. And as I continue to learn and go out there and meet new teachers, I'm like, holy crap, I didn't know anything. Like and I get new perspectives. Or sometimes sometimes I do a active service and I show up in a community and it's really scary. And I think I'm going to get hurt or attacked. But then I end up making beautiful relationships. That meditation it's always new because I'm like, I get past a certain fear and it feels great. You feel so liberated when you find out you're safe and you're okay. So
Well, I love that story. And do you mind if we delve into a little bit of meditation? Because I'm like, first of all, I read a book a long time ago and I'm a huge believer in meditation. And I believe if everybody meditated only 5 minutes a day, that the energy we put out in the world would change the world. Right? It's like energy that pushes out of you and goes places. Like you said, you felt someone standing behind you. And that really is the energy of his meditation surrounding you. And you can make the embedded monks that go up and do these meditations, they are healing communities. And they see that healing in the communities that they move to when they do their meditations. So 100% love it, believe it, can't do it. Never been able to meditate.
Wait.
I can't. I tried.
Wait, hold on. Jana. Do you worry?
No, I'm a thinker. My brain never quiets.
Okay, but so even when you think about something, is there ever any times where you think about the same thing over and over again?
No.
You never do that?
No.
You're just bouncing all over the place?
Yeah, like I literally wake up in the morning filled with joy every single morning. I'm so grateful for it. Like
Amazing.
Filled, never, but I want to meditate because I want to focus. I want to center. I want to push out that energy of that joy I feel, right? And here's what happens. I close my eyes and I'm like, how long should this take? Did I shut the phones off? It never stops. Like, oh, don't forget to tell yourself when this time hits that you have to make this call. It just never stops. I cannot get into it. One time, someone said, have you ever tried watching colors? Like there's these colors. I started looking, that helped a little, but I understand the joy and healing that meditation doesn't only bring to you, but pushes out and creates this beautiful ripple effect into the world. I know that. I just can't do it.
I mean, I think for, first and foremost, I think we got to like maybe rebrand it for you. Like, how about we don't call it meditation, right? And what if we call it, like, what would be a cool word for you of what you're doing?
No. My joyful time. My joyful quiet time.
Joyful time. I like that. Okay. So we'll call it the joyful flow time. All right. So let's see if you could do joyful. Let's do it right now. Are you down with that? And then we can like, yeah. Okay. And I got a cool thing right here. Look, check this out. Okay. You ready?
Okay. Now what am I supposed to do? Like just.
Okay. So we're going to do joyful time, but here's what we're going to do. Here's the catch with this. Okay. I want you to pick something like an example of a joyful moment.
Got it.
Okay. And now what you're going to do is you're going to match that joyful moment with your breath. Okay. So like, just check that. Play with this. So as you're breathing in through your nose, right? You could do this with the eyes closed or open, right? But like I implore you to close your eyes because I'm playing the flute. So it'll be nice to kind of jump into that like that. And so what happens is breathing in, as you breathe in that joyful experience. So actually almost like be the director, right? In your own mind and be like, all right, I'm going to rethink about that joyful moment. Okay. As you're breathing in. Okay. And then as you pause, kind of like sit with that, like create a pause between your inhalation and exhalation, like sit with it for a little bit extra. And then when you breathe it out, just breathe out that joy back out into the world. Like you're sharing it with the rest of the world, right? So now you're sharing it. And then when you breathe in again through your nose, breathe in that joy again. Like, so maybe even if you start doing that, you might even change your joy. Maybe it's a different event or a different circumstance or a different situation where you were gifted something, you gifted something. This joy comes in so many shapes and forms. So allow your mind to start becoming like the director, right? And so you're directing your mind to be like, all right, I'm going to think about this joy now. So as you're breathing in, you're thinking about a new joy. You're pausing between your inhalation and exhalation, and you're like kind of sitting, you're simmering with that joy. And then when you exhale out through your nose or out through your mouth, you're breathing out that joy into the world. All right, let's do that flow. All right, these last few breaths, make them really count. Go long, deep breaths. See if you could make your inhalation super long, maybe matching that, staying in that joy a little bit longer. And then when you pause, see if you could make that breath a little bit longer, a little extra. Hold that pause. And then the next time you're at your exhalation, maybe you give a nice little inaudible sigh. Nice. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes or shake your fingers or whatever, smile.
That works. Let me tell you why. You gave me something to think about. It wasn't emptying my brain, right? I thought you had to empty your brain of thought and let things come. And the things that came were my checklists for the day. You literally gave me something to focus on. And so that completely works.
As my guru always said, you need to focus. Okay, you need to focus. Okay, so the important thing about that is, right, like we sometimes get so caught up with not thinking that becomes what we can't stop thinking about.
100%. That's true. It's like telling someone they can't do something, right? That's the one thing they have to do now.
or don't think about the pink elephant,
Exactly.
Don't think about the pink. I mean, but at the same time, right? Like, I think, we need to start understanding there's practice, right? So like right now we did that practice, but eventually, I don't know, Jana, like maybe as you keep practicing, one day when you do want to not think about anything, quote unquote, right? When you do want to like empty your mind, maybe it'll happen naturally because you've been practicing this tool to kind of clean out. So like my thing is this, okay? What you just did right now was kind of like what we have to do to our computers once in a while, right? We have to defrag our computer. We have to clean it out. We have to organize the desktop. We have to do all, organize our files. They get all over the place. Sometimes it's okay if we don't empty our mind, but we do need to sit sometimes, breathe deeply, and allow our mind to kind of just like reconfigure, right? Not like when we're sleeping, because when we're sleeping, we might not be reconfiguring. We might be doing something else, right? So like being able to be awake while you're sleeping, that's kind of like what like yoga nidra is about, right? Like wakefully sleeping, or yes, sleepfully waking, or no, yes, wakefully sleeping.
Well, now I want to talk about how you're showing up and serving your community, because I was really touched by, I love first responders. I don't think that they get enough credit for leaving their families, being like I have a brother-in-law who's a firefighter here in California. He's a fire captain, and he has to leave his family during fire season, right? And when they're scared because fires are close to them, he can't even be there to calm them and reassure them. He's off taking care of other people's homes and families. So I love how you're showing up and doing what you're doing. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, thanks for asking about that. I mean, so I got to like come at it with a couple of things. Okay. So for me, I love learning. I'm going to be an eternal student. I love the space of being a student. And so I'm constantly studying, I'm constantly finding mentors and teachers and even volunteering. Like my family always instilled that a third of my life is always service. Like I have to always be doing something. Even when I've been broke, I like still showed up and volunteered in the community, right? It's been a big part of my life experience. And that being said, I've kind of been able to like work and be involved in different segments of society, whether it's politics and government, whether it's NGOs, whether it's law enforcement, whether it's education, entertainment. I've been in all these different spaces, right? What I've noticed consistently is there's two things that are really broken. One is like radical compassion is not like, it's not active in those spaces, right? Like radical compassion, like where like you'll do anything to make sure people are taken care of, like that mentality, like you'll do anything, like you'll sit down at a meeting until people will get taken care of because you have the power to do that, right? Whether it's fiscal power, policy power, whatever you got, right? Access to the children or whatever, the people in need. Okay, so I've noticed that that's been missing, radical compassion. The other thing is like policy, like understanding policy and how policy can actually be used to like help people, right? And support people, no matter what their needs are, whether Republican, Democrat, left, right, middle, outer space, whatever the heck you are, right? So that being said, a few years ago when Obama was in office, that was when the first Black Lives Matters thing started happening, right? And like, I kind of felt it. I'm a brown person. I've definitely faced racism in life. Like, I've jumped into it. At certain times in racist situations, I've leaned into it. I had to learn in my life to lean into it because I grew up with it. Like I had teachers who were racist to me, I had like really terrible situations growing up being brown in America, right? I do know that like being angry doesn't work. Like being angry and hateful and vengeful doesn't work, right? But I saw these Black Lives Matter things happening. I'm like, wait, let me analyze this. What's going on with the officers? So I started hanging out more, talking to them on the streets, meeting, just like when I passed the officer, I would start having conversations, whether I was in New York, I was traveling around the country, I would just connect with officers. And I started consistently noticing a pattern that police officers were like struggling from like significantly studying from heart disease, right? They weren't sleeping well. They're not like, they get all this training, but not much of their training is like social emotional training, right? And if it is social emotional training, it's being given by therapists who have their own social emotional issues, right? So it's like the blind teaching the blind, right? There's a good therapist here and there, but they don't really learn about interconnectivity or analytical psychology. Like most therapists don't go deep into like the shadow, right? Or like why these shadow elements show up in people, right? We and I start studying it, but the modern lexicon, like the Western medical and psychiatric lexicon has like ignored, like mythology, ignored archetypal psychology, ignored shadow psychology. So that being said, I just started noticing these issues and the same recurring themes with officers, whether they were white, brown, black, everything across the board. And so I leaned into it. I went to a city hall meeting for San Francisco one day, and I happened to be in the same room, a side room with the chief of police, and I had my red nose, my clown red nose that was gifted to me. I was wearing it. I was like, let me just, bring some laughter into this political space because it desperately needs it. And he engaged with me and we talked and we had like about a 10-15 minute conversation. And I asked him, I'm like, I straight up asked him, Jana, I was like, are the therapists helping your officers? Like, are they actually helping them? And he's like, no, not really. He's like, the officers don't even like going to them. And I'm like, yeah, because it's like, that's hard to like, it's hard to be vulnerable in those spaces, right? Like, cause it's like so professional. It's not organic, right? So I said, how about like, can I try? Like, would you be open to me like sending you something and giving a shot and like seeing if I can, I played basketball, played football in college. Like I might be able to connect. I'm a dude. I could, even though look like this, I'm a dude too, And so he said, fine. And it took me 5 meetings, making a presentation, creating a whole curriculum. I finally got in there, Jana. It took effort, it took organization, it took pragmatism, right? But I also brought a lot of love. Like I went in there and I brought a lot, I didn't compromise like the way I love, right? And I show up and, the first couple of classes, I only had 5 to 10 guys and women show up. And then they started having benefits and they like spread it to and then at the end of it, I had like 30 people showing up in each class and it was like packed and, it was really powerful. But But let me preface it. That's all great and positive. And those officers, they all filled out surveys. All of them had better sleep, better relationships at home with their wives and their partners. I mean, it was pretty transformational because it was so like we did physical stuff, emotional stuff. We did community building, right? We did a lot of cool stuff. Yeah, and we laughed. We had fun, right, in that space. It wasn't just deep, heavy stuff. We also like enjoyed ourselves. It was a good time for them too, to feel even recognized by somebody from their community. But the other side of it was this all was awesome, Jana, but then the politics stopped me from doing more of it. So now that's why in this past year I'm actually co-founder in a political entrepreneurship company. And now we decided that we need to give citizens the power to create policies. So we're like empowering citizens to create policies themselves so they can get bills passed in their city halls that actually work, like stuff that's going to help the community. Because like what happened with me with the police, like I did something that worked and they loved it. And then the politics blocked me from doing more of it. Like that should not happen, right? When there's like people's lives are at stake. Like literally just this year, last year, another couple of things happened. And it's like, if they had me times like 4 or 5 other people coming into the precincts, there might not be more violence. Maybe they'll start being relaxed and being able to think more better when they're sleeping better and meditating more. You know, like it's just phenomenal that like this, we need to do something more to make politics more efficient, because it's not efficient right now. You know, like people are suffering at the cost of us kind of like not being involved. So anyways, that's a whole side thing. The political entrepreneurship, the business we're creating is actually a platform. It's literally like we're gamifying being a citizen. And so we're making it so that you get rewarded for showing up for your city, for your neighborhood, not federally. We don't really care about federal politics. It's all about local. We're like, hey, how do we like, because the people in Arkansas or Kansas, their needs are different than the people in Oakland, and they're different than the people's needs in Marina Del Rey. You know, like there's different needs. Other people's needs should be crossing other people's needs, right? People need to be figuring out what their needs are and then making their government accountable to help support them with their needs directly, rather than like waiting for some nonprofit or some like some Bezos or some, you know, CEO philanthropist coming in with an agenda, right? Like the citizens actually know better what they need. So
by the way, I had no idea this conversation was going to go that way. And I absolutely love it, because I feel that we have such a powerful voice and we forgot that we have that. And when we get out there and we start using that voice and putting it into action, magical things start to happen, right?
Yeah. So this is the thing behind me, actually. You could see it, right? This is called, we're called democracy. And it's been really fun because we're like a very diverse team of co-founders. So two women, 2 men, you know, a mother, an ex-veteran, you know, a black person, a brown person. We have a European person. Yeah, it's so cool to work with these cool people, because as we've been building this project, this platform, we really had to be like America ourselves. We're like, wait, how do we represent America, right? How about we not be Facebook and we not be Twitter and all these other things? Let's be something where we are, from the start, we are people who care about our communities, about our neighborhoods. We're connected. Like we're not like living in some like mansion making decisions for people, you know?
I love that. So let's be neighbors, right?
Yeah. Remember Mr. Rogers? Mr. Rogers? Mr. Rogers is my homie. By the way, he's my spirit animal. Sometimes, you know, Mr. Rogers shows up and I'm like, all right, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I love that. Where can people find all this great information about you?
Oh my gosh, there's so many places. I mean, ideally the best place, you know, right now, obviously is LinkedIn. You can find a lot of the different projects I'm working on in LinkedIn, Indy Rishi Singh. If you want to like, you know, some of the things we're doing are we're looking for investors. We're looking for people who want to jump in and be involved. If you want to just be involved in like, and you know, my thinking these days, by the way, Jana, is I want to build cooperative businesses, kind of like they have in Europe, where like the workers own a part of the everybody owns a part of the company. Like it's distributed, you know, it's not just a bunch of people at the top making a pyramid scheme, you know? So really that's kind of my spirit these days. So anywhere anybody want to show up and support, even with the stuff I'm doing with kids, with teenagers, you know, we really want to build something that's going to support, you know, I think Jana, that was something we talked about, is like, I really want to support the children right now. And we really need to lean into people who are creative and innovative to support them. We can't like rely on the academic and scholastic atmosphere that is failing. children right now, right? Like we can't rely on them. We need to actually be a little bit more innovative and entrepreneurial. Like what we're doing, my colleagues and I, with Cosmic Labyrinth, we're actually creating a video game that's social emotional learning through a video game. Right. So we're like, hey, like, let's meet the kids where they're at. Like, I love video games. So let's meet them where they're at. But then let's make something alternative where they're not killing people or building some sort of arbitrary buildings or whatever and learning capitalism, I guess, in some games, right? But how about they like learn how to build their social emotional tools, how they can build resilience, how they can understand themselves better, right? So they can show up in the world better, right? Like there's none of that gaming, right? Like there's no like education that even teaches that. So, really we need to be innovative in these spaces. So I'm leaning in hard. But by the way, mind you, this particular platform, this democracy one, I do implore everybody check it out. I think it's worth checking out. I think we would love to get your feedback, how we can make it better. We really want to make it fun to be a citizen. We want to reward people to be citizens. Like what if if you were an active, involved, caring citizen, you actually got rewarded. Like that's like what we're thinking about. Like how do we reward you? So democracy with an SEE.club. That's like a cool space to check it out. Yep.
Well, we're definitely going to have all of your links in the show notes so people will be able to connect with you really well. I just always ask verbally so people are just listening. They can, quickly go to it, but it's going to be in the show notes. All of Rishi's links will be in there so that you guys can connect with him. And I would definitely check out Democracy. And I would definitely check out anything that helps support children because they're the next generation, right? What we're forming in their minds right now is what our world's going to look like in future years. So we can't ignore that.
Actually, Jana, it's crazy. I am also starting a podcast. Whoop, whoop, at the end of this month. It's called Political Hope. And so I've already started interviewing people, some really cool players in who show up in the world as political hope, whether it's through their businesses, whether it's through being involved in politics directly and indirectly too. And one of the things that I came across during these interviews is I spoke to a woman who works with Homeland Security with child trafficking and sex trafficking, and she said it's increased crazy during this pandemic, right? Like she's like, it's really scary what's happening. And then the other side of it, I had an interview with a woman who has a big, huge billion-dollar company, a VC company that started to invest in farms. And so I've been thinking in my own meditation, wait, I want to it'd be really cool to create foster homes to support some of these kids and to have them live there, but it also being a farm, having a farm be a way for these kids to rehabilitate, right? Because instead of them having to do regular education and be a part of some public school system that's not healthy, right? What if we help them connect to the land, maybe connect to eating healthier, and that's a part of resolving the trauma, and that's a part of also getting support from a community of teachers, a community of parents, a community of rather than it just being two parents who are tasked with helping kids who are suffering from trauma. Can you believe it? What we do with kids who suffer from trauma, holy cow.
Just push it under the rug and move forward, right?
No, I don't see anything. I don't see anything.
If you act like it doesn't exist, it won't bother you.
Wait, what Netflix show is? Wait, isn't Disney Plus have a new movie? Let's watch that,
Exactly. I am so glad that we connected because this has been a real joy and I love what you're doing out in the world. So anytime we can help promote you, I would love to know more about your podcast so we can help push it through here as well, because I think that message needs to be heard and I want to help push that out.
Well, you do. Would you like to be interviewed? Because you do political hope, what you're doing.
I do.
You're literally doing hope, and in my mind, politics is just talking about how we can live better and share things better. That's my perspective on politics, right?
My perspective on politics is I hear all the time. I ask, "Did you vote?" Nope. If I vote, you're just going to cancel it out. I'm always like, yeah, not if you're not there. So thank you.
It's true. I think what a lot of the times politics gets confused. The word politics, people automatically attach toxic politics,
right?
Without saying the toxic, it's silent, right? But we have to understand that politics is actually what decides how we live, where our energy comes from, how much we pay for our energy, where everything around us is politics decides it, right? So it's wow, we should be involved with that. If you're smart and you're intelligent and you're not involved, man, you're messing up. I'll tell you that. You got to meditate or something, you know?
Oh my goodness, you've been a pleasure. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. And I will thank you.
Thank you. And let me know how that meditation goes. And also for your listeners, it'd be nice to get feedback. If they practice this joy meditation, how does it help them? Does it help them during this time, especially with so much noise and so much, things going on? Does it sitting in breath and joyfulness, does it help people? It would be nice to know, right?
Definitely give us some feedback. You guys are so good about touching and telling us how you like the show. So I would love to know how you liked it and if you're practicing it at home. So thank you guys.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening to the Oh My Health, There Is Hope podcast. Make sure to visit Jana's website, bestholisticlife.com, where you can subscribe to the show on iTunes, Google Play, or listen there so you'll never miss an episode. While you're at it, if you found value in the show, we'd appreciate a rating on iTunes, or if you simply tell a friend about the show, that'll help too. Let's change the world together, one health expert at a time. Looking forward to seeing you next time.